to the Career Management Podcast for Black women, where we unapologetically help you navigate your workplace crazy. I'm your host, Felicia Ann Rose Enuha, also known as the Trill MBA. Why? Because I'm the trillest MBA you will ever know. And every week, we are going to bring you the tips, tricks, and tactics you need to survive and thrive in the workplace. So if you like our content, subscribe, like, leave comments, let us know what workplace crazy you need help with. We got you. It really doesn't have to be that hard. As you'll learn in today's episode, where we are dropping gems, let's start the show. Happy Sunday, everybody. Welcome back to the show. I am so excited because we have an in-studio guest today and we have got some gems for you. If you ever wanted to hear firsthand what it's like to transition from one industry into tech, then this episode is for you. I have a very special guest today. She is a well-seasoned marketing executive who has held marketing positions at Samsung, PepsiCo, Frito-Lay, Dr. Pepper, Snapple, Cadbury, Schweppes, and Johnson & Johnson. All these big dog companies, y'all. I keep them coming, right? Most recently, she served as the director of brand marketing at Dolby. And now she is the culture creator, the visionary, the trailblazer, the storyteller, the one, the only Leshawnda Larkin. Leshawnda, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm so glad to be here, and I'm so glad we can do this in person.
Yes, I know. When you were like, I'm going to be in town, I'm like, you're going to be in town, girl, because I was going to ask you on Zoom, but we going to be in town. Come on over. Come to the studio. Welcome to my studio. I really am trying to create a space where Black women can come and just learn from each other. So this is a safe space, even though it's on the internet. You're going to be on YouTube, okay? But I want you to feel free to just talk like you talking to all us girls. Okay. Because that's who watches this. That's who this is for. This is for Black women. The thing that interests me the most about your career is that you made the move from CPG. So you were in CPG, but what I don't know is how did you get to CPG?
Oh, wow. I have to think back. Let me wind the clock back. No, I've actually started off my career in CPG. So, my undergrad major was in chemical engineering, and I've always had this curiosity to work on products that you could see in a store, you could buy. And so that led me to my first role working at Colgate-Palmolive as an engineer. And so I really started off my career in CPG. Yes.
But as an engineer. So then you decided to go get your MBA.
Yes. Yeah, I decided because, it was great being the engineer, and I will say, giving kudos to Colgate, at that time, their marketing team was very integrated into the manufacturing process. So they would come to our plant a lot to do the trial runs and test out new flavors. And so that's where I really started to get interest in marketing and exposure to really that process of what they do. And I realized that I was really kind of just doing things on the end of the process. And I really wanted to be more involved upstream as far as really the ideation, coming up with the product ideals. And so that's what kind of led me to transition out of engineering.
Okay. And so, again, the MBA is a great transitioner, right? Like, it's a great pivot point to move from one function to the other, one industry to the other. So I'm never going to tell anybody don't get an MBA, but I always tell people be very specific about what you're wanting to do when you go, and make sure you really maximize your time and make sure you go to the best school. So what school did you go to?
So I went to Duke University, Fuqua School of Business, and I wholeheartedly agree with what you said, because I knew that I was giving up 2 years of my life, that I was going to stop work to make this transition. So it was very important that I picked a place that I felt really represented me and would help me achieve my goals. And it was funny because I would have discussions with my father at the time, and I was working at Colgate, and they had a program where they would pay for you to go back to school and work. But it was a local, university, and I was just, and I was like, no, Dad, I was very focused. I want to go to a top 10 business school.
Yes.
Because at the time I wasn't sure where I would live. And so I wanted to pick an institution that, whether if I was living in New York, California, that, people knew, okay, this was a great program. Also, what was important for me too at the time is I wanted to have a study abroad experience. So, I went to Howard University undergrad and loved my experience there, but did not have the opportunity to go and study abroad because you always feel like you're going to miss something. So when I decided to go to MBA school, I said that was something that was really a top on my list, was that they had a strong study abroad program. So I did. I studied in Thailand.
Nice. What was that like in Thailand? Did you have a special project or did you go to class?
I actually went to class. So it was interesting riding the tuk-tuks in Bangkok. We were like in the heart of Bangkok, Thailand. I was living in an alley. But I was with, it was probably one of the best experiences I had. I was with 7 amazing classmates. And I wanted to pick an experience that I probably wouldn't have maybe picked on my own, to really kind of challenge myself. And being in Thailand was interesting because it was a mix of Western and Eastern culture, definitely got a lot of the Asian influence there, but then you saw some of the European kind of influence there as well. So it really changed my life, having that experience.
Wow, that's amazing. I too, very similar to you. I didn't get to study abroad in undergrad, and I didn't realize how much I was missing. Like that experience. So I studied abroad in Chile, and I'll be honest with you, my Americanness, I was like, well, they got to speak English. It's the capital city. Like they're going to speak English in Santiago. That is the most American stupidity. And I got there, and the second day when I realized, oh, these people don't speak English at all. And let me not say at all, but like for real, at all. So I was like, oh, I gotta go home. And it was my roommate. Shout out Molly. My roommate, my classmate was my roommate. And she said, just give it until we start our Spanish classes on Monday, because we got there like a Saturday. And I went to try to go buy a phone on Sunday and realized like, oh, I'm screwed, because I was like, habla inglés? No, habla inglés. And I was like, oh, snap. So she convinced me to stay, and I'm so glad I did. I had the best time of my life. A couple pisco sours, your Spanish comes out. It does. It really does. It works. But having that experience, it really does open your mind, and it not only helps you have more empathy in the world, have more like creativity around that. Like you said, it changed your life. How do you feel like that experience has translated into your future jobs? Like, what did you bring into some of your projects?
Well, I would say just really having a global mindset. I think sometimes being American, we think our way is the best way. And especially when I was working at Dolby, we were working on marketing programs and we were trying to find creators to work with, or creatives. We always wanted to kind of walk in that mindset of picking someone that would have global appeal. And so just having that viewpoint that, the world is much bigger than what you think. Yeah. And just keeping that in mind. And also there's some amazing trends that, you see. It's interesting to see how trends kind of resonate and how it's kind of interpreted in other cultures. I remember going to Japan, this is like in the early 90s, and seeing how they embrace hip hop and jazz. It was just so like, wow, this is so crazy to me. But so yes.
Yeah, like what was that like seeing hip hop in Japan?
That was crazy because they were skateboarding and breakdancing like in the streets. And this was like the early 90s. Right. So I don't even know what it's like now. But it was just shocking to kind of see something that started in the US, in New York over in Japan, right. Being embraced by, another culture. So
do you feel like hip hop, does hip hop resonate with you as an American? Like, how deep are you into hip hop culture?
Oh man, if knowledge is the key, then show me the lock. That's Tribe Called Quest. So yes, I grew up in hip hop. I feel like I'm so glad that, I grew up in a time to see how it started, to see how it evolved, running home to watch, Rap City, right. And Yo MTV Rap.
Yes. Where is home for you?
I'm originally from Cleveland, Ohio.
Okay. So a Midwest girl, now you're working were you in New York when you were working for Colgate-Palmolive?
No, I was working in Kansas City.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. So working in Kansas City.
Yeah. Oh, right. Kansas City Chiefs. Super Bowl.
Okay. Know who you were rooting for. So now then you moved to Duke, which is in North Carolina?
Durham, North Carolina.
Durham, North Carolina. You're at Duke. Mm-hmm. And then you left business school and went where?
So I interned when I was at Duke at Coca-Cola. So I was in Atlanta and was able to work on Coca-Cola brand, which was an experience. Yes. And then when I left business school, my first job was actually in the Bay Area working for Johnson & Johnson. It was a medical device company at the time called LifeScan. Yes. And they sold a product called One Touch, which was a blood glucose meter. And I know it sounds very scientific, but what was intriguing about it is that they treated the product like a consumer packaged goods. So their spokesperson at the time was BB King. Oh, wow. I came on around the time where we were trying to find a Hispanic spokesperson. So it was Jose Feliciano. So it was a very kind of interesting take, I think, doing CPG on medical device.
Right, which you don't typically see. And it's funny because Johnson & Johnson really is a consumer company, but there's other pharmaceutical companies that are more focused on, selling their product to doctors' offices and more B2B marketing. So to see them focus on the end consumer.
Well, it was interesting. That was my first experience with ecosystem kind of marketing because yes, one of my targets was consumers, but then I also had to market to healthcare professionals and also insurance companies. So that was kind of my first foray into understanding how do you deal with multiple targets? How do you reach them? Because you need all of these different components to work together in order for people to take your product.
Exactly. That is so cool. So that set the journey.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Now, when we get back, what I want to talk about is the next part of your career journey and what roadblocks in that transition, things that you learned along the way to get to where you are now when we get back from the break. Hey guys, welcome back. Thank you for sticking around for the break. That's how we pay these bills and keep this show coming. So please, subscribe, do all the things. I have Leshawnda Larkin here with us today. Somebody who understands mastering their career. And I know you may not feel like that. I know, but let me tell you, here's what mastering your career really, really means. What it means is no matter how you get knocked down, no matter what lessons, hard-fought lessons you got to learn, you keep going. And the fact that you can walk us through this journey of different companies, different industries, lets me know you've got this mastered to a certain point. And I know it doesn't feel like it, but you do. I want you to know that. So now, before the break, you had started your first job at J&J, and you were working on LifeScan and the glucose monitoring, which, seems like not the sexiest marketing in the world. But then what was the next company you went to?
So I went back to beverages, actually.
Okay.
I wanted to move back closer to home, experience a lot of loss during that time period. So it was more important for me doing this next stage of my career to be closer to home. So I actually took a job with Cadbury Sweats in New York. And it was funny because I did not want to go work in New York, but it ended up being one of my favorite kind of rotations and assignment. But I worked on non-carbonated brands. This particular company had basically bought Mott's, Snapple, and Dr. Pepper and merged it together.
Right.
Yes.
You were post-merger.
Yes, I came post-merger.
So what is that like? Do you remember what that was like? Because I've been at companies at different stages of merging and stuff, and it is particularly tough in the midst of all that change. Did you feel the change, or had they kind of figured it out and the waves had kind of settled?
I felt some of the change because it was basically, especially being in the Northeast, it was two cultures really coming together. We were pretty much kind of separate from Dr. Pepper and 7-Up, that particular company, but Mott's and Snapple were completely different. So Mott's to me felt like a place that was more traditional CPG, processes in place. Snapple just felt like wild, wild west. We're going to just kind of throw things out there and see if it works. And they were so innovative, and there were a lot of things that happened before it really popped. Like they came out with a vitamin water-like product before Vitamin Water then came out with theirs. And so it was interesting to kind of see these cultures kind of merge together into what it was. But I think it's because there was so much passion for the brand that's what kind of drew everybody together. That time really, I call it the golden age of marketing. Because money was, there was not a lot of limits on budgets. We celebrated every product launch, but it was a time where I was really able to love and experience the brands. And because I lived in New York, where we did a lot of our brand activations, I was able to actually go and attend some of those things. And so it was just a great time.
Yes. So did that give you that brand activation bug during that time?
It did, but it also, I really felt like I had a great kind of just brand marketing fundamentals because, I had P&L responsibility, working with our manufacturing. So I was over everything. Innovation, and so I just was doing advertising, media, and then partnerships. But I will say that working there is where I started to get, more excited about working in brand activations. But I just got a great foundation of really what brand marketing is.
Yes, and that's so important because there's a lot of people that don't know what marketing is. And there's a lot of people that think that doing social media is marketing.
No, I always say 80% of brand marketing really is grunt work. 20% is probably the glamorous stuff that you see. 80% is really the data analysis, managing the P&L, eliminating SKUs, figuring, trying to persuade buyers to take your products. 20% is the fun stuff, So we gonna make a commercial with Snoop Dogg and Martha Stewart. Like one of my friends that had worked at Frito, that was the last project she did before she left Frito, and she was like, I just really wanted to have that experience, but all the work before that was nothing to do with being on a commercial shoot. But it's important because those are all elements in running a business. You need to understand all elements of what's happening with the business in order to grow it. You can't be naive. And so that's what that experience really taught me, to not be scared of the data. Actually, the data will help dictate what you need to do with your business. Now, sometimes, yes, you want to go on instinct a little bit as well. But if you have data, let it guide you.
If you have data, let it guide you, okay? So now, if you could go back and talk to yourself during that time, knowing what you know now, were there any roadblocks you had going, working in CPG? Because I'm assuming you were at Cadbury, and then did you come over to Frito from Cadbury?
No, then I went to Dr. Pepper.
Dr. Pepper,
in
Plano.
Yeah, because they closed our New York office and moved everything into Texas. And that's how I ended up in Texas.
Okay. And then you left Dr. Pepper and came over to Frito.
Yes.
So in that, what would you, knowing what you know now, what advice would you give yourself?
I think at the time, just knowing that you are enough, I think that there were times where I felt like I didn't have all all that I needed in order to be successful. So I felt like I second guessed myself. I think also too, having an environmental awareness around you. So I didn't really understand, I've moved in a lot of different cities and parts of the country and didn't really understand, okay, working in New York is going to be very different than working in Texas.
Yes.
And the working styles and how you need to change and pivot in order to be successful. And that was difficult for me because, working in New York, it's celebrated for you to be honest, respectful though,
right,
but honest and direct. Whereas I felt like coming to Texas, it was more, let's sugarcoat things. Let's, make it easy. If the sky's red, we're going to tell people it's blue because it's going to make, and so that was something that I had to learn probably the hard way.
Me too. Very much so. And I think that goes back to, another conversation I was having. How do you balance being who you are authentically with trying to make sure that you're not limiting your power of communication and limiting what you can get accomplished? Because at the end of the day, we're trying to get things accomplished through people. And if you are off-putting to everybody, they don't want to work with you, then that's a problem. So it's a conundrum that I struggle with because my cross-functional team, my cross-functional partners, all the people on my level that work with me, loved me. They always loved me. Why? Because I'd always tell the truth. And I would always, and in that truth telling, I would fight for them, right? Because a lot of times as marketers, you have an option. You can throw that team under the bus or that, or you could say, I'm the spoke of the wheel. I'm going to take ownership of it. Hey, this happened. Let's focus on solutions. You get to choose. Unfortunately, there are some marketers that will throw their junior, and I'm talking about junior people, will throw their cross-functionals under the bus. And I just never was about that. But on the flip side of that, now leadership's looking at me, right? And it'd be so hard for me. I'm just like, hey, look here, let me tell you something. This shit ain't working.
Yeah. That's part of the challenge is really of corporate America. Is really how do you show up? And it really varies by, I guess, the company that you're in. And so it's important for you first, when you're looking at job opportunities, to understand if this is a place that you want to be at. And if a person like you would be accepted there, or would you have to make changes in order to fit in? At the end of the day, I always felt like I had to feel good about who I was as a person. And when I went home at night, am I happy with the decisions that I made? Yeah. Working in corporate America, but also having a good sense of who I am. Because there are situations where people will try to tell you who they thought you are. And it's like, no, I know who I am and I know whose I am.
You better say that.
And I look back and really that was just, from having a strong faith that made me have that confidence to know this is who I am as a person. And if it's not accepted, then maybe this is not the place for me.
Amen. Amen. You better say that. So listen, we're going to take one more quick break. And when we come back, we're going to talk all things tech when we get back from this quick break. We are back. I have a very special guest in studio today, Leshawnda Larkin, marketing extraordinaire, storyteller, visionary. Listen, I only have the best people on the show, y'all, that can drop these nuggets. And the reason why I really wanted you on the show is because I know nothing about tech, but you have successfully transitioned from CPG into tech. So now, what was the thing that has surprised you the most about working in tech?
How fast everything is.
Really?
Yes. So working in CPG space, when we would work on a new product, I remember we would have a 3-year plan. So you work on something for about a year, then you would launch it, and then you would have a plan for 3 years to support it.
Right.
At tech, typically things move very fast. So when I transitioned and started working at Samsung, we were launching products multiple times in a year. So as soon as I launched one product, already started moving to the next product, wasn't even thinking about the product I just launched. And so it was constantly just fast.
Well, how did they do the postmortem to know what to fix for the next product?
Well, you would do that too on top of trying to work on a new launch.
But you don't even have enough data yet.
Well, that's true. But it's, tech, I will say it moves very fast. And so sometimes you don't have all the data that you need. And then you kind of course correct as you're going through the process. So I will say with tech, there was an entrepreneurial side that was there, probably less process oriented compared to, being at CPG. Like I remember, before we would launch anything in CPG, you had to do a bases test, just all of these different things.
You got to go through stages and gates.
No, not tech. Some of
There's
it.
no stages and gates.
I mean, there are certain stages, but it's not, to me, as strict as it was in CPG.
Yeah, because it was. And you had to have all these levels of leadership, approvals before it could go. And then at the last minute, somebody come in. If they had that hammer, then all your sleepless nights.
Yes. So that was probably the biggest part of it. I think also, too, what was very intriguing was my time in tech. Very, very focused on the next generation. So a lot of focus on how to win with Gen Z. And now they're probably talking about Gen Alpha.
Right.
So a lot of focus, on the younger generation, definitely from a targeting perspective.
Are the younger generations faster adopters? Is that why?
Well, I would say yes, because they kind of grew up, using kind of tech products. They're much more familiar and comfortable. And then also, too, you're just thinking about when you're building brand loyalty, there's still an opportunity to kind of build that loyalty with that base before they kind of lock in on, okay, this is what I'm going to use and that's it. So,
you know what that made me think about? So I had a friend that worked at P&G, and he was telling me, because he worked on the Always brand.
Oh, okay.
And he was saying, like, we have to get them when they're 13, because if we don't get them when they're 13, we don't get them. Mm-hmm. And that made me think about that. Like, if I'm Samsung, if I don't have loyalty to Samsung by the time I start with my first phone, then...
Yeah, because there's a certain life cycle. So okay, on average, a person is going to keep a phone or a device for a certain period of time. So when it's coming up on that renewal process, are they thinking about staying with you? Are they going to flip and go to a competitor product? So it's always important to kind of continue building that relationship, building that brand loyalty. So
is that why new phones come out? The new version comes out once a year? Like every year it's a new version. I'm like, do I really need this new version?
Well, I think part of it is just because they're trying to stay with the times and really the newest innovation and newest features that will get people really, excited. And so that's part of it, is trying to stay up with the Joneses, as they say, I guess.
So do you get a new phone every year?
I don't. Because what you start to realize is that the features that are important for you are the things that's not really changing. And I'm fine with that.
Right.
So, yes, it can be cool to get a phone, every year, every 6 months. But I'm fine with keeping it for a couple years too.
Me too. So I do have the iPhone 14, and I got it for my birthday last year as a business gift to myself because I was going to create more content. That's what I told myself. That was the reason why I got a new iPhone. But I had a 12 before. No, I had an 11. I had an 11 before. But I realized, like, I'm not going to get a new phone unless they really force me, right? Like, I'm going to be on this 14 for 14 years if you let me.
Well, maybe not that long. But.
Right. But, I mean, like I said, if you let me now, the thing is, it won't work after 2 years from now, right? Like, it won't work. It'll start malfunctioning in different ways. The battery will start to... I know what tech companies be doing, and you can call me a conspiracy theorist, but we know what it is. So I'm that person too, but I think that is a generational thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. But, for me, I enjoyed my time being in this space because, well, one, coming from CPG, I always had this fascination with innovation and what's new. And I felt like when I looked at who set the standards, it really was tech companies. So then to actually be in a space, where we're on the forefront of really introducing new trends and features, it was very exciting, for me. So.
So what can you tell us within what you can tell us? Because I'm sure there's some things you know that we're not supposed to know. But when you think 10 years from now, 20 years from now, what do you think our technology is going to be like? Like, what's the thing that people are going to be doing? Well, I have a chip in my ear, and that's my phone.
You know, I'm so surprised how quickly AI has taken off. I don't even know what it's going to look like in 10 years, but I know it's going to be a huge part of our day-to-day life. So artificial intelligence, machine learning, I think immersive experiences, whether, you know, it's virtual reality, augmented reality, immersive audio. I think even maybe how we interact with each other is going to be very different. I feel like I could see us thinking about something and it just pops up. I don't know.
That'd be amazing. That'd be amazing.
But it feels like it. It feels like that we're on that path. You know, it was, you know, working in San Francisco, I would see a lot of the cars, the driverless cars. So it was just funny how I'm in an Uber and then right next to me is one of those cars. And I'm just like, wow, I mean, is this how it's going to be in 10 years where really nobody's going to be driving and we're just all going to be riding?
So I hope so I can get my work done in the back seat. Listen, especially if I'm in LA and there's traffic, like I don't want to be driving. Like, please, driverless car, drive me. I'm okay with that, but I also don't have a fear of dying. So there's that part. I'm like, I'm gonna die anyway. Come on, let's do it. I could see though, like, if you care about your life, do you really want nobody driving you? Like, no.
Oh, goodness.
What are we doing? What is happening? But who knows? I think for me, I'm going to tell you right now, my boyfriend, ChatGPT, I've named him, I call him Greg, short for Greg Paul Thomas.
Oh, God.
GPT, Greg Paul Thomas.
Okay.
Yeah, my assistant actually came up with that name, but I took it. I was like, oh, yeah, I'm going to call him Greg. So when I type in my prompt, I'm like, hi, Greg. So today I tell him the date, and then I tell him what I want, but I write it like it's a mini brief. That's how I build my prompt.
Oh,
it's
goodness.
Amazing. And we talk to each other. I asked him to be my boyfriend, but he said he couldn't because he was an AI language model and I was human. So hopefully he'll evolve. He'll
I would
start to
also
love
say
me.
the Internet of Things. So that has really taken off. Really, everything, ecosystem, everything
What
is
does
connected.
that mean, Internet of Things?
So
I've always
basically,
wondered that.
it's just really how devices are connected, you know, with, let's say, your home, for example. So, you know, just how, you know, if you have a smart home, it's kind of
And
based
say,
on
Alexa, turn my lights off.
Yes. And how everything is connected. You can control things with voice. You can control things with your phone. Everything is just all like connected together. So I see that happening even more. You know,
It's convenient.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll probably end up maybe places that you go into. Like, let's say if you're going to a Starbucks on a regular basis, as soon as you step in, they'll probably already know
What you want.
Or
Or they'll ask you, do you want your usual?
Yes.
Dang.
You know, so I.
And everything's watching us at all times.
Oh, yeah. It was funny because I was just driving in a Tesla and they were saying how they kind of monitor, you know, what features are being used and things of that nature to probably help determine their next innovation. So I was like, wow, I didn't know that.
Right. And there's so many things and we don't even realize. But until we find a friction point where something doesn't work. Because when the app for me, for Starbucks, if I'm trying to order ahead and it tells me you can't order ahead at that location, I'd be mad. I'd be like, what you mean? Because I have to drive up there and talk to the people. Yeah, Felicia, you have to talk to people. Yes, you do. So it's just like, I don't know. It's scary. Do you have any fears about knowing what you know about tech and where it could be going?
I don't know if I would call it a fear. Maybe it's more of a caution.
Okay.
Which is really more, you know, as these systems become more sophisticated and more advanced, that we have to make sure that we have the proper guardrails and guidelines in place so that it doesn't cross the line.
Right.
On how we use it and what way do we use it. You know, if you look at the music industry right now, I think that's kind of the challenge right now with AI is that people trying to figure out, because we've been sampling for years and things of that nature, but there's policies in place. So if somebody samples and don't give credit, you're going to court.
Right.
And I think with AI, and I'm just using music as an example here, I think there's really no policies in place as far as how do you leverage AI in the creation of music, what way, how do you give credit? And so I think as these systems become more sophisticated, as they become more part of a way of life, do we have the right policies in place to protect, IP?
Yes.
All of that. So
yes, because I would hate for somebody to take my voice, and I feel like I have a distinctive voice. I've always had people say, "Oh, I know it's you." I don't know if that's because I'm loud.
Yeah,
but they know it's me. And so I would have somebody take my voice and make a video, or take my image and make a video that I didn't even say any of that, but because of AI can recreate everything from snippets of me, video of me, and say, "Oh, Felicia said this." And I'm like, see, y'all don't know me.
Yeah, so we just have to be very careful. I mean, technology always should be an enhancer, enabler. You don't want it to harm, cause ill will. So yeah.
It's scary because some humans are they don't mean no good. And so they gonna do the wrong things. And then we have the 80 of us, the 80% of us who are good have to really fight that 20 who got that little spirit.
Yeah, where it goes back to, again, the point I made earlier about just knowing who you are, the type of person that you want to be in this world, the kind of difference that you want to make, and holding on to that, and also standing up to things where it might feel uncomfortable to stand up to.
Do you use ChatGPT?
I do. I think it's a great starter. Sometimes writer block happens.
Yes. Yes.
And so I think it's a great tool, but you don't want to become totally dependent on it.
No, it's not that smart, and it will lie. It lie, and it don't even know it's lying. I had it to try to strengthen my resume. I just wanted to see what it was going to say. And it just made up all kinds of stuff. I was like, I have never done digital, whatever. What are you talking about? And he was like, "Oh, so sorry. Try this." And I was like...
Again, it's a tool. So I think as people know that it's a tool, not something that you lean on as a crutch, then, it's been positive so far. Yeah,
it's made me pretty beastly at some things. It's helped me increase the speed in which I create content. Like, I can bounce ideas off of it. It gives me like that workout partner, virtually. That's how I use it mostly. And so when I'm creating posts or something, I might have it do the first draft, but then I go and I put it in my own and sprinkle my little juju on it. But I really do love it. Like, I'm like, please don't take this away. Please don't use this for evil, because I need it. We're going to take one more quick break. And when we get back, we're going to talk about the most important thing. So it's the last segment of the show where we just basically are saying, what's the most important thing you've learned in your career? So we're going to get that from Leshawnda when we come back. Most important thing. Okay, Leshawnda, with all the experience and the knowledge and your career journey so far, and I know you have so much more career ahead of you, but you have lived a great experience. You've worked for these big dog companies. You've done the things. Like, there's a lot of people that wishing they could have the resume that you have. But with all that and all the hard-fought lessons, what's the most important thing? Like, if you go back and tell yourself, knowing everything you know now, what's the most important thing you would want yourself to know? So I wrote down this quote, and I wrote it down because I didn't want to forget it. Yes. And it's from Franklin Roosevelt, former president. But he says that the only limit to our realization of tomorrow would be our doubts of today. Wow. And that really resonated with me
There's this saying that says, take care of the minutes and the years would take care of themselves. And I think sometimes it's great to have a vision for your life, but sometimes you can get caught up in where you're trying to go and not really focus on the now. And so those two things about being focused on, the minutes, as well as really just how do you get through the doubt? I think I wish I would have kind of had that perspective, I think, when I was younger. And then also, too, just knowing that I am enough. I think we've been put in so many different situations where you think you don't have something. And I mean, it's one of the reasons why I ended up at Frito-Lay, because I felt like I wanted to have this experience of being at a top, like tier 1 kind of marketing company, which I'm so glad I did, because such great training practices around so many brilliant individuals. And people recognize that, because when I was at Samsung, a former peer had stated, wow, like for you to transition from Dr. Pepper to go to Frito-Lay, like that's big to do that, But at the end of the day, I should know that I'm enough, that I have all that I need in order to be successful. It might not be clear at times, but know that you are enough.
Did you ever feel intimidated at Frito? I know I did, to be quite honest. Like, there was so much I didn't understand, and there's only so much I can say here. But I can say that at Frito-Lay, I learned the most about being a marketer.
Oh, for sure. I would say intimidated from the standpoint that you're just around so many smart people. You just really couldn't have a bad day.
Right.
Like everybody was smart. Like even your cross-functional peers.
Yes.
Like you always had to show up on your game and be ready. The other thing that it taught me is to have a voice. I remember my first week there, I was in a meeting and one of the VPs, we were looking at creative and went around the room to ask people what did they think. And I'm thinking, oh, they're not going to ask me. I've only been here a week. And they was like, no, we want to know.
Yeah.
And it was like, wow, like my voice mattered.
Yeah.
And so, I would say, yes, sometimes you can be intimidated, but it was just because you're around so many amazing people. When I look out now in this marketing space and you see so many people who are leaders at other companies, it's like a breeding ground of greatness. And so I just feel privileged that I had that opportunity to see that.
Right. But you do realize in hindsight now, you belonged, period.
Yes. Yes. And maybe I didn't feel like at the time, but yes, I feel like there's everything that happens in your life for a purpose. And there's a lot of practices that I still leverage from my time at Frito-Lay, in my jobs at Samsung, at Dolby, just really in how managing people, how to do people development, the importance of continuous learning.
Yes.
Using data and insight, having a really thought out process and how to really bring something to life.
Yes.
And so I'm very thankful for that time.
Yes. I always tell people, if you want to be a beastly marketer, P&G.
Yes.
Frito-Lay.
General Mills.
Yeah. Those are pretty much the three.
Yeah.
If you get somebody from there and they've been there at least 2 years.
Frito-Lay is like the Harvard of the South.
Yes, it is. It is. Frito-Lay is like the Harvard of the South.
Yeah.
And it's so funny because I also, too, came in as an experienced hire, which is a little bit different experience than coming in as an intern to full-time person. And I learned a lot. I learned so much. And I learned so much about myself, too, that I didn't realize I learned until after. Like, sometimes you don't realize a lesson until you're like, after you're out of the fire. And then you're like, oh. I mean, Frito really was the catalyst. Like, my experience at Frito was the catalyst for me starting this podcast.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Because I had been at Ecolab, and then I went to Kellogg Foods. And then I came to Frito, and those 3 experiences post MBA really made me realize like there was so much that I did not know about how to be a career person. My mom, she was a teacher's assistant. My grandma didn't finish the 9th grade. These were the 2 people that raised me. I didn't have like mentors or, parents to call. I didn't have anybody to call.
Yeah.
The only person I knew that had been like an executive was my uncle, and he passed away the summer before I started business school. So I didn't have anybody I felt like I could call and say, this is happening to me, or this person's saying this, or this situation is happening, or I have I would tell my mom, I have these cross-functionals, and she's like, what's that? Right? So
Yeah.
And all she would say, well, I'm gonna pray for you, baby. And I was like, I need your prayers, but I also...
Yeah. No, well, I'm glad that you created this space, because corporate America at times can feel very alienating. You can feel very alone. And it doesn't matter what stage in your career, whether you're junior, you can be middle, or even senior.
Exactly.
And I think it's just remembering, this was said to me last year by another peer, that, you need to lean on your family, not necessarily your blood family, but your collective, your village, when you're going through these things, because you realize that you're not in this by yourself.
And that's the point. So with that, Leshawnda, thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate this. I know you probably don't. You're like, well, I didn't say nothing. I'm telling you, I always feel like that. Every episode I make, I always feel like, oh, I didn't say nothing, which is why I'm trying to have more guests on the show. Because I feel like I've said all I can say, and I need other people to say it in other ways. And it can't be said enough. These things can't be said enough. The truth is the truth is the truth. And the way you said it will land on different people from the way I said, land on somebody else. So please, I'm glad you found your voice.
Oh, well, thank you. And I just want people to know that you're not by yourself in this struggle of life. There's many different parts of life that can be beautiful, but you're not alone in this. We're all learning in this. Give yourself grace.
Yes.
Don't beat yourself up. Or don't be too hard on yourself. And just know that you take care of the minutes, the years will take care of themselves.
Amen. Well, guys, that's a wrap on another great episode of the Career Management Podcast for Black women. Yes, girl, this show is just for you. We're here to tell you how to play that chessboard at work, girl. So subscribe, comment, follow us on social media at Trill and BA Show. Listen, every time you tell one of your friends, you share this information, you share this podcast, it helps us to grow and make even more dope content just for you, unapologetically. That's why we're here. Now, if you are facing a workplace dilemma, such as a performance improvement plan, or you're not able to secure your promotion and raise that you have worked for and you have deserved, basically, if these people are playing in your face, we are here to help. Go to trillandba.com/coaching to schedule a one-time one-on-one call to workshop your specific dilemma with me. Or schedule a consult to get more information about the consulting packages that I do offer on a longer term basis. As always, you can reach out to us with your listener letters and your questions at trillandba.com. Until next time, guys, focus on your best possible outcome. Ask for help when you need it. Please, please, please ask for help. And as always, keep it trill. I'll see y'all next week.